Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we will start our program. And just want to let you know that after the program, we have tea and snacks. So stay here and benefit from the lecture as well as from the tea. Yes, inshallah. So inshallah, we will start our program. I would like to call Hafiz Saab to come here and recite the Quran, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. وأوفوا بعهد الله إذا عاهدتم ولا تنقضوا الأيمان بعد توكيدها وقد جعلتم الله عليكم كفيلا إن الله يعلم ما تفعلون. ولا تكونوا كالتي نقضت غزلها من بعد قوة أنكاثا تتخذون أيمانكم دخلا بينكم أن تكون أمة هي أربى من أمة إنما يبلوكم الله به وليبينن لكم يوم القيامة ما كنتم فيه تختلفون. ولو شاء الله لجعلكم أمة واحدة ولكن يضل من يشاء ويهدي من يشاء ولتسألن عما كنتم تعملون. صدق الله العظيم. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed shaitan. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most gracious. O humankind, indeed Allah commands the execution of justice among you, and the doing of good to all, and the giving of charity to close relatives. Moreover, He forbids all obscenity and shameful deeds and aggression. He admonishes you with this, so that you may become mindful of His commandments. Thus you shall fulfill the covenant of Allah whenever you make a covenant, and you shall not break your oaths after their affirmation. For indeed you have made Allah a guarantor over you. Indeed Allah knows all that you do. Then do not be like the woman who unravels her yarn into fibers after it has been spun firmly, by taking your oaths as instruments of deception between you, so as to breach your covenants with one group of people for another group more abundant in power and wealth. Allah only puts you to the test by this, for most surely He shall make clear to you on the day of resurrection that about which you have disputed in life. Yet had Allah so willed, He would have made all of you one faith community without choice. Thus know that Allah does indeed leave to stray whomever He so wills, and He alone guides whomever He so wills. For most surely all of you shall be questioned about what you have done in life. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair, Hafiz Rafi. So inshallah, the person I'm about to call need no introduction. MashaAllah, he's not new to our masjid, and he does amazing things, MashaAllah. He is the director of CAIR, who does amazing things for the Muslim civil rights. So I would like to call Brother Ahmed Rehab to come to the podium.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد أما بعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. صدق الله العظيم. My dear brothers, thank you for this invitation. I am an ally, a partner of this masjid. This is how our community functions, as bricks in the same wall. So we are an institution that fights for the rights of Muslims. This is an institution that provides for spiritual and social space for the development of Muslims. We need one another. I'm here today to provide a service, inshallah, and that is to inform you and remind you of your rights, which are enshrined in the U.S. Constitution, the laws of the land in which we live. And inshallah, in turn, there is no payment for this work except your dua. If you would like to support the work that we do, I did not bring any forms or any boxes. We have initiative as Muslims. We are soldiers of Allah. You know how to do it yourself, inshallah. CAIRchicago.org is all I'll give you. It's the website. CAIR, chicago.org. You are welcome to go there, inshallah, make a donation for the sake of Allah, and you can specify zakat eligibility, which will go to zakat eligible services only. With that, let us get straight to the point at hand. There are many different forms of rights that we have that we can talk about, so I'll try to break them up into maybe 4 categories. One that is often on the minds of many of us is federal government or law enforcement interactions. What are the rights that we have in these situations? If, for example, you are visited by an FBI agent at your home or at your workplace, what do? There was recently a story in the Washington Post of a brother from Pakistan who came here and studied for his bachelor's degree. He's from a well-off family in Karachi. And he went to Northeastern University in Boston, very good school. Graduated, did well. Brothers, can we? He basically did really well, and went back home to his homeland, and would visit and go, back and forth, until one time when he was visiting his aunt. He was on a 6-month visa. His whole family was out. He was the only one home. He got a knock on the door. And at the same time that the door was knocking really hard, he was getting a call on his phone from his cousin, or so it seemed. That was the number on the phone. So he answered, he picked up the phone, thinking it was his cousin, and instead it wasn't his cousin, it was an FBI agent, who said, "Don't hang up, come straight to the door immediately." So he went to the door, opened up, and there were 2 gentlemen in suits with the FBI badges. And they asked him to come with them. They needed to talk to him urgently. He was terrified. Why is the FBI coming for me? I've never done anything wrong. He didn't know what to do. He wanted to prove his innocence, so he engaged them in a conversation. They almost didn't let him even change out of his pajamas, but eventually they allowed that. He got into his street clothes and followed them into their car. They asked him to go somewhere where they can have a conversation. And so they went somewhere for breakfast. There, they told him, they got straight to the point, and they said, listen, we need you to work for us. We need you to become an informant. He didn't even know what that was. So what's an informant? and they told him essentially means that you're going to essentially spy on your community and give us any information that we require from the mosque, from the, social spaces, even back in Pakistan. They told him about Waziristan, which is a part of Pakistan, and he said, I have nothing to do with that region. They talked to him about different groups. He said, I don't know anything about this, and this is really not my thing. I can't be of help to you. I don't know anything, and I'm not that kind of person, really, so I don't feel comfortable with this. I'd rather I don't do it. So they started to kind of, pressure him as much as they could, and it didn't really work. He didn't eat anything from the breakfast. He was so nervous. And so they sent him home, and he thought this was the end of it. But then later, they contacted him again, and he thought they had forgone, but they hadn't. At this point, they warned him not to tell his aunt or a lawyer. He did both as soon as he got home. So he figured they'd be angry with him. So there was an appointment set. This time a lawyer came with him. Unfortunately, it was not a highly qualified lawyer. It was a non-Muslim lawyer who wasn't super familiar with these issues. And they went and they met at the FBI facility, including with an attorney, assistant general. And they started to question him further. And at the end of it, he still refused, but they told him that basically he was choosing the bad guys over the good guys. Now, this was 10 years ago. This was still at a time where, post 9/11, you can say. I think we moved away from that a little bit. Point of the story is they then put him on a no-fly list. They put him on terrorist watch lists, and they tried to make his life hell, and they let everybody who knows him know that this is the case. So any friend of his that would come to the United States, any relative, they would stop him at the airport, they would give him a very hard time, and they would say, why is this happening? And they'd tell him, do you know this person? It's because you know this person is a dangerous person. To the point where all of his friends and family began to, not very close family, but distant family, began to distance themselves from him. And so he wasn't invited to weddings, he was defriended on Facebook, and he started to live as a social pariah in his own space, which really stunned him. Now, I want to back up to our rights. What do you do in a situation like this? Somebody knocks on your door. What, do you know the answer?
You don't answer if it's a stranger.
Well, that is correct. If it's a stranger, it's my son, Shamsuddin. If it's a stranger, you don't answer. But if it's a law enforcement, you can answer the door. And you see that this person might be in a uniform, like, law enforcement uniform, or in a suit, regardless. You don't let them in. You have every right not to let them in. Once they're in, they have a right to look around. They have a right to pick up a book. They have a right to look at photos. They have a right to ask you about things. You don't have to answer, but they can ask you. So to avoid all of this, our recommendation for your own protection. This isn't about I've done something wrong or I haven't done something wrong. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. But someone knocks on your door, we're willing to go through the process, but here's the process. You walk outside, you close the door behind you, and you say, can I help you? They'll say, I am so-and-so, I need so-and-so. Whatever it is that they say, well, kindly give me your card with your name and number, and I'll have my attorney contact you to see how we can be of help. Oh, no, this does not require an attorney at all. This is a very simple matter, no need for this complication. Sir, I would like you to give me your card and number, and my attorney will contact you to set up an appointment. You can ask me whatever you want. We can talk about it then. You insist. There is nothing anyone can do because that is the law. But you need to know your rights. In this case, this young man didn't know his rights, and he was pulled into a conversation, and now is a different track. In other cases, they're asked them questions, they answer innocently, but sometimes they misremember. Where did you come here? Oh, I came here first time 2004. No, it was 2002. Suddenly, that's something they can perjure them on. It could be called perjury, which means lying to an officer of the law, which is a federal crime. So to avoid all of this and to protect you against your own human shortcomings of forgetfulness or whatever, this isn't about malice, this isn't about criminal behavior. Fully innocent person just making a human mistake. Do not engage in conversation or answer questions. Now, luckily, you don't have to get an attorney like this guy got. You can get my attorneys, our attorneys, who will be for you, first of all, free of charge, and second of all, very experienced in these matters. So CAIR Chicago can avail these attorneys for you. Okay? That's as far as if you're visited by law enforcement, FBI. So you have a legal right to have a lawyer. They cannot search you without a search warrant. So you should ask for a search warrant if ever a search is forced or made. You should never provide false information, because that would be a federal crime, lying to an officer of the law. And you should definitely get the name, the contact information, and not speak unless you have an attorney. Now, if stopped by police on the street, the police must have a specific reason to stop you. They can't just stop you because you have a beard, or you have a kufi, or you have a shawa kameez, or none of that, or you have like Arabic, calligraphy on your windshield. They have to stop you for a reason. That reason should be breaking the law. So the police can stop you, but it has to be for a reason. They can pat you down over your clothes if they have a reason to suspect once you're stopped that you're armed and dangerous. You should comply. You do not have to answer any questions in this case either, unless it is to provide your name, identification, and insurance, which you should do at a police stop. You can ask if you're under arrest or if you're free to go. If you're under arrest, then there's a process. We'll talk about it. If you're free to go, then you should not allow them to keep you. You don't have to sit there and answer questions. Say, am I free to go, officer? Am I free to go, officer? He's going to have to say yes or no. If it's a yes, then you're free to go. If it's a no, then you have to ask, am I under arrest? Because there's nothing in between. And if they keep you in between, that's illegal. So you need to know that. And you've seen many videos of young people engaging the police and they know their rights, they can't go far with them because they know their rights. In your car, obviously keep your hands on the vehicle, make them visible on the steering wheel. If you're the driver, like I said, you must show your license, registration, proof of insurance. They might separate a passenger from a driver for patting down or something like that, or questioning. You don't have to answer questions, as we said. If arrested and taken to a police station, as we mentioned, we would talk about, there you don't have to answer questions either, other than your name and identification. You should request an attorney and then answer any other question in the presence of that attorney. So it would be the same thing there. If mistreated, which we've seen a lot of cases, especially against African Americans, the best thing you can do in this situation is do not resist or fight. Now again, we know that this has, a lot of people have been targeted without resisting or fighting, but you should not resist or fight, and you should write down the officer's name, badge number, and any other identifying information and try to find witnesses so that later we can then get your rights and justice back. So you have to sort of be patient and not resist arrest. You cannot fight a police officer on duty, but you can definitely get your rights back, inshallah, should you be mistreated, if you do these right steps. My dear brother, tafadhal. You have a question? All good? Okay.
I just have a quick
Yeah.
question. Before you, when you go further, do you have any, like, a number or something which, let's say if this thing happens, so 24/7 that the person can call and get the help from the CAIR?
Yeah, it's not 24/7. I mean, my number is 24/7, so you're welcome to call me.
Okay.
But the office wouldn't be. Yeah.
Okay.
But to get an attorney, it would have to be during office hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you'd like to say something.
I saw like the police in the road.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you allowed to take video when the police stops?
Yeah, you can take video. You're allowed to take video. You're allowed to record. You're allowed to protect yourself that way, and you're allowed to look for witnesses.
What happens if the witness lies?
Well, that's not a very good witness, and it's haram. So the witness has to say the truth.
Now also Illinois law does not allow police to check the immigration status, right?
Yes. Yes. So that is not a valid reason to stop you. Okay. And it cannot be held against you, and they cannot check that. You're right. Okay. So now your rights as an employee. So every employee of any institution, whether it's private or public, has a right to expect reasonable religious accommodation. That is the law. What is reasonable religious accommodation? It means if your religion requires something, your employer should allow that, so long as it doesn't put undue stress on the job. So let's say your religion requires that you pray 50 times a day, which alhamdulillah ours does not. You can say that's my religion, but your employer can't accommodate that because there'll be no work, right? But even the 5 daily prayers, some jobs say, look, I'm not going to keep stopping the assembly line. And so religious accommodation, reasonable religious accommodation here would mean that let's say you're entitled to 5 minutes every 2 hours. Then you're allowed to use that for prayer, and they can't tell you can't, right? If they're able to give you 5 minutes, even if that's not the case, then that would be reasonable accommodation. If you have a break, lunch break, and you go for Jummah, and you're back on time, or you request an extra half hour, which is reasonable, it might be reasonable in your case, it depends on the job, then again, you can argue reasonable religious accommodation. So it just has to be reasonable, it cannot be unreasonable, right? I had a situation where a brother was making wudu, bare feet in the sink in a pharmacy that had very special, equipment that needed to be sanitized, and he came to us and said, oh, they were angry with me, they wouldn't let me do it. I said, brother, that's not a reasonable accommodation, okay? This is a sanitized environment. You shouldn't be putting your feet into that sink. You should go to the bathroom or something like that. So, but in not many other cases, there are employers who are just, miserly, and they see someone praying on a break, and they said, if you do this again, you'll be fired. These are the people we go after, right? Because that's a reasonable accommodation. You have a right to expect fairness in the hiring process and in the firing and promotion process. So that should only be based on merit, and whatever rules should be applied to everyone equally. There are no special rules for you as a Muslim, regardless of how you look or what you practice. You're entitled to a non-hostile work environment. Sometimes there isn't any discrimination in terms of like pay or time off or some of these more concrete things, but there is like a hostile environment that you can't quite quantify. It's just the way they look at you, the way they talk to you, the way they treat you, they try to make you feel unwelcome. That is also something that you can contest, you can come to CAIR Chicago for, because that shouldn't be the case. You have a right to complain about discrimination without fear of retaliation. A lot of people, especially immigrants, quite frankly, okay, they'll say, look, I want to complain, but I'm afraid to, and I won't because I don't want them to put me in their heads more. I don't want them to treat me even worse and be angry with me because I complain. So they kind of keep it to themselves. This happens so much, okay? It's like women with domestic abuse. They're afraid to speak up because they'll get even more abused or something. In both cases, we have to cut the cycle. So that should not be the case. As a matter of fact, the law says, should you be retaliated against, let them. You'll have a stronger lawsuit. You'll have double the lawsuit. First, discrimination. Second, retaliation. So there's no fear there. Okay? And again, when you have an organization like CAIR Chicago, alhamdulillah, we'll be with you from the beginning to the end should there be a process like this. If you believe you're facing discrimination at work, what do? You remain calm and polite. You should not engage in these personal, angry, arguments that put you as an offending party along with the other. You want to maintain your upper hand. You're a victim. You don't want to become a victimizer, so you remain calm and polite, professional, stern, confident, but calm, polite, and you don't make any mistakes in your words and your actions. You inform the offending party that you believe his or her actions are discriminatory, so you let them know, put them on notice. You report the discrimination in writing to the company management. So let's say it's an immediate supervisor, you let them know, and then you also send a letter to the upper management. You begin documenting the discrimination by saving memos, keeping a detailed journal of everything that happens, noting the presence of witnesses, who was there at the time, are they friendly to you, can they tell the truth about you, and making written complaints every time they happen. Make sure to keep copies of all materials. It is important to keep a paper trail of evidence. Now, the reason why these two steps are important is because most of the time when someone's discriminated against, we have a lot of cases, the solution is to sue the employer. But if the employer can argue, this employee never told me, this employee never let me know, how am I liable? It was his immediate supervisor who's just a jerk. John is just a jerk, that's John, that's not us. But in order for us to be liable, we need to know. So you need to prepare yourself for, because we're not going to sue John. I mean, we could, but John is just another employee. So and John works in this environment. So you need to let the employer know John or whoever is doing these actions. Now, if they fix it, great, then you're done. Then you've solved your problem. You don't need us. If they don't, then now the employer is as liable as John, and they're the ones we sue. And that's why you go through this process. So it's a win-win, right? It's a win-win situation. And at that point, we're going to say, do we have a strong case? Did you let the employer know? Yes. Okay, good. Did you document everything? Yes. Good. Because evidence is important. In many cases, well, some cases, not many, we'll get what seems like a strong case from what happened, but a weak case legally from the lack of evidence. So the things they tell us, oh, horrible. Do you have any witnesses? No. Do you have any emails? No. Do you have any recorded anything? No. Did you document anything? Do you know dates? Do you know the name of the person? No. Then there's no case. So we have to let the case go. So it's important that you know, if something like this happens, you document as well as bubble it up and go through all these steps. Does that make sense? Then you should ask to be transferred to another department. You have a right to do that. If it happens, that might, give you peace of mind. Because let's remember, we're humans. It isn't just about winning and getting it right. It's about your daily life. You don't want to be going to work all nervous. And if you can be transferred to another department, great. If not, then again, you have even stronger evidence of discrimination that they did not accommodate you. You can ask for mediation, which is kind of like, it's not a legal thing like a court, but it's also a formal way of listening to two sides to resolve a problem. You can ask for that. A lot of companies have that. Do not sign any documents or resign from your position without first consulting an attorney. A lot of times what they do is they try to say, look, there's nothing we can do about this. The best thing for you to do is just go. We're going to give you like $1,000 or whatever. But just sign here to get it. But then here says you cannot sue us later, you cannot say we discriminated against you later, and you've essentially signed off all your rights. So do not sign any document or resign, because if you resign, you have no rights. You're done. It was your choice. Without consultation with an attorney. And then contact CAIR Chicago and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, but we can do that for you. All right, so let's move on to the last two. Your rights as an airline passenger. This is important because it happens very frequently with Muslims. Now remember, we have TAP, the Travelers Assistance Project, which is dedicated 24/7. That's a 24/7 number for travelers. If you believe you've been mistreated in a discriminatory manner, meaning beyond the law, because you're entitled to courteous and non-stigmatizing treatment by airline and security personnel. It is illegal for law enforcement officials to perform any stops, searches, detentions, or removals based solely on your race, religion, national origin, sex, or ethnicity. Now, they could do it based on something else, like you being on a list. But they can't do it just because you're a Muslim, have a Muslim name, or whatever. So you have a right to that. Now, however, you feel mistreated, what do? You ask for the names and ID numbers of all persons involved in the incident, whether it's TSA or gate personnel or airline personnel or flight attendants or whatever. Be sure to write down this information. Ask to speak to a supervisor. Politely ask if you have been singled out because of your name, looks, dress, race, ethnicity, language you're speaking, faith or national origin, anything you're concerned about. Politely ask witnesses to give you their names and contact information if there was an incident. And then write a statement of facts immediately after the incident. Include the flight number, flight date, and the name of the airline. It is important to note the following. A customs agent has the right to stop, detain, and search every person and item. Screeners, that's a customs agent, okay? Screeners have the authority to conduct a further search of you or your bags. A pilot has the right to refuse to fly a passenger if he or she believes the passenger is a threat to the safety of the flight. The law gives them this full right, and I think it's a good thing, because ultimately there needs to be a leader on this plane to make decisions. Sometimes you have unruly passengers, drunk or whatever, and there needs to be a legal call and not get sued for it, right? The pilot's decision must be reasonable, though, and based on observations, not stereotypes. So again, this isn't about what can happen, it's about why it happens. It's okay to stop someone, but it's not okay to stop them for their religion. It's okay to remove someone, it's not okay to remove them for their religion. It's okay to detain and search, but not for their religion. That's the point here, okay? Now, let's talk about the no-fly and selectee list. There are two lists, the selectee list and the no-fly list. If you're on the selectee list, probably you won't be able to check into the flight through online means or the kiosk, the automatic kiosk. You have to go to the gate, to the check-in counter. But you would get on the flight eventually. You might get questioned and secondary screenings and things like that, but you'll get on the flight eventually. So selectee list is just like basically an extra layer of questioning and security that they put you through. But the no-fly is different. That means whatever you do, you can't fly, right? And that usually that's related to terrorism suspicions. I think less and less people are on that second list, but there are still a lot of people on the first list. With the first list, if you suspect that you're on it unfairly, which sure, if you're on it, probably is unfairly, you have a right to file a report called TRIP with DHS. Just go to dhs.gov/TRIP, or you can contact us to file it. That basically can eliminate any mistakes. So if there is a name, Murtoja, and somebody else is called that, and it's not you, then they'll say, oh, it's the wrong person, they'll fix it. Or spelling error or whatever. But, so at least you want to sort of eliminate any of those reasons, right, before you get serious. If that doesn't work and you're still on there, then probably it's you that they want, but it's probably you for the wrong reasons. And at that point, we have to kind of try to fight it, and it's very difficult at the moment because the law does not give us any leeway to do so, but we can, contact senators or, threaten lawsuits and things like that. We're actually working on a class action lawsuit right now. But it is a difficult thing to deal with. It's one of the great acts of systemized discrimination that remains in this country, in my opinion. So we've been going now for how long? I just want to make sure what time are we supposed to end? 2:20? 2:20. So, and then we have questions and answers. Okay, so 4 more minutes. So I just want to close then by maybe telling you what to do if you witness a hate crime. If you witness an act of discrimination or hate crime yourself, the first thing you need to do is make sure you're safe and secure. The second thing you want to do is document it while you're safe and secure. And the best way to do that is through video evidence. The third thing you want to do is jot down facts. If it's not on video, you'll need to do more of the facts. If it's on video, probably the facts are, caught on tape. But you want to know where you are, what time it is, who did what, who said what, descriptions, things like that. And then you want to report it immediately to the police, and if it's an act of Islamophobia or anti-Muslim discrimination, to CAIR as well. But protection and safety is key, especially in some cases hate crimes can be violent. So basically, this is a quick summary, and I can provide a summary document to Brother Murtoja, and he can maybe share it with those who need it. Would you like me to do that? Yeah. So sort of a written summary. But I hope this sheds some light on the fact that we have rights, and we're only as protected as knowing them, and these rights are only as strong as them being practiced. Just having rights is not good enough, and someone who's not aware of their rights, in many cases, I remember a brother who had a green card, and he came into this country through a different airport than usual, and they told him, oh, you haven't been staying here long enough. You've had it for 10 years, but you haven't stayed enough months per year. You need to turn over your green card. And so he did, but he really didn't need to do that. What he should have said is, you know what, I'd like a hearing. I have a valid green card, I have a valid airline ticket, I'd like to be admitted, and I'd like to get a hearing. And so when they do that, they have to comply, and to give you a hearing, they have to let you into the country, because you can't have a hearing in Kuwait, so they let you in. So once you're in, then you can get an attorney and figure it out, but you don't want to, he gave the card. Here's the thing, once he gave the card, nothing I can do, unless he gave it, voluntarily. So he just didn't know. Oh, I didn't know that. So knowing is important. Knowledge is power, it's empowerment. So please make sure you and your families and friends are well aware of your rights. I'm going to close with that, inshallah, just about on time, and open it up if there are any questions or comments or concerns. Let's begin with the brothers in the back there. Go ahead.
Define more about that such which you just now said, about whether it will be
The selectee list, that's when you're on a list and there is some concerns, security concerns supposedly, and that causes extra trouble during a travel. This is different from the no-fly list where you just can't fly at all. So with the selectee list, if you're on it, this is where you can't check into an automatic machine or online or the phone. You have to be at the check-in counter in person, or you're getting secondary screenings all the time or extra questioning, but you travel at the end. And the way to deal with that is first through filing a trip form that I mentioned, dhs.gov/trip, or contacting us. Or thereafter, it is hard to get off these lists, but we're filing a class action lawsuit. We can contact members of the Senate or Congress to try to fight back and get the person off this list because of the mistreatment.
One question that I have is, what kind of rights visitor coming from different country, a Muslim, when he's been detained on the immigration office, what kind of rights he got?
It depends what kind of reasons for the detention. So if they're detained for legal reasons, then basically they will process that automatically and this person has to comply. For example, if they're coming in on an invalid visa or a visa where they suspect they might not respect the rules of the visa, so a tourist visa but they're coming to stay, or a student visa but they're coming without a real school involved, like it happens sometimes, or an employment visa but the employer is like a friend and not a real employer. So if they suspect that there is reasons to deny this person because this person is here to stay beyond the allotted time or for different reasons than what were stated, they have a right to return this person or not admit them. If everything is fine and there are issues, they should be able to request admission and they should be able to be admitted, and then an attorney can walk through the rest of the issues that they might have. This is why we have TAP. So how do you know the difference? Call TAP if you're in the situation.
But we won't know, right? I mean, if he's inside the office and then they decided to deport him.
No, we would know because if somebody doesn't come out in 2 or 3 hours, that's your clue that there's something going on. So there should be a relative or a friend on the ground, stateside in the United States, that calls if this person can't and said, hey, my mother-in-law has been in there for 3 hours, or my brother has been in there for 3 hours. Can you find out what's going on? So we then go ahead and contact the airport and security and find out, there's this person, we're their attorney, what's going on, and then we can find out.
On the same topic, is the security forces, they are allowed to screen the laptops and the phones? They have access to it? Like they're authorized to do that?
They can if they have suspicion, but you don't have to give the password. You don't have to give the password. And a lot of times when you say, I won't give the password, they just don't bother. If they really, really want it, they'll take it to a lab and they'll return it to you at a later date. Yes?
Yeah, so what kind of rights you have as a US citizen when you are entering country through a airport or through a land? Because we often get a lot of questions and they ask specifically when they see if your name starts with Muhammad or you are brown color, then it's totally a different treatment for you, even though you are a US citizen or a permanent resident. So what kind of rights or what can we do at that time? Because I personally, when I'm entering country, I face those questions.
Whether it is, let me begin by saying this, whether it's an airport or a land port, or a land crossing, it's the same rules, okay? And the rules are as follows. Number one, you should not be asked anything except what relates to your travel. So if they start asking you, are you Sunni or Shia? Are you, what does your dad do? Or what is, this guy? Or who's your brother? Or something like that, you don't have to answer these questions. And as it pertains to your travel, like, how long have you been out of the country, sir? You just answer the question, 3 weeks. What were you there for? Business.
I mean, I was told by that I'm the law here, and I'm going to be one who is going to decide you whether you can enter the country or not.
Are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes, I am U.S. citizen.
That's not true. They cannot make a you have to enter the country. It's not up to them.
Yes, what can we do at that time? Well, I mean, because we really don't want to be a in a conflict situation that, say, no, this is because, again, he's a federal agent.
Yeah, but the federal agent has to be careful because the federal agent is just as vulnerable as you. If you know your rights, this agent can be in jail if they do something really wrong. So that it's not like I'm a federal agent, I can do whatever the hell I want.
Should I just say that?
So in this specific example, first of all, you say, no, I'm a US citizen, I will be admitted into my country. You do not have the authority to deny me admission into my own country. If you don't know that, you should check the law, sir. And I'll be very concerned to have a law enforcement agent who doesn't know the law. Speak up for yourself, it's fine. You're not creating the contention, he is. Okay, let's remember that. Number two, you would say, if you have questions pertaining to my travel, I'm happy to answer them. If you have anything else, let me know if it's because of my race, religion, or color. So now it's what I said earlier. You ask, am I being treated this way because of my religion? Am I being treated this way because of my race? You try to scare them into the fact that there could be a potential discrimination. It goes further, I need to speak to your supervisor. This is unprofessional, this is wrong, I will not accept this. Okay, I'm a businessman, I'm a doctor, I don't know, what do you do?
I'm in IT.
Yeah, I'm an IT business person, this is, I will not accept this. I'm not a criminal, I'm a US citizen, this is ridiculous. Just stand up for yourself and...
Asking for supervisor.
Yeah, and keep in mind, you're the boss, not them. I mean, you don't have to kind of like, oh, I need, it's so long as you've done nothing wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I was sent inside for secondary inspection, where I waited for like an hour, and then they gave me my passport and said, go.
Well, that's happened to me too.
Yeah.
That's happened to me too. But you just comply, that's fine.
Yeah, that's
You know?
the only thing you can
Yeah,
do.
but if they start to talk to you that way and say, I'm the law, I cannot let you in or out, or or if they start to ask me questions that are not related to travel, okay? In this case, I was just patiently waiting, nobody said anything. At the end, they said, we're sorry, but if they use the wrong language or wrong questions, I'll be saying what I just told you, Yes, I'll get you.
Okay, I need to know about the municipality rules or laws or our local mayor is supposed to be Muslim here.
Yeah,
And he pointed us during the meeting that this is not MSI and this is not Muslim because somebody was raising a hand and asking question. And during the meeting is recorded.
yeah.
So he pointed, this is not Muslim, this is not MSI, so you don't do this right. What does that mean? He's showing that that's what we do in MSI or the Muslim.
Yeah, I spoke to him.
You did?
I spoke
And
to
then he said, the people who did not vote for me, they are stupid Muslims.
Yeah, no, I spoke to him on the phone, and I had a press release ready to try to destroy him, basically. Because if he's engaged in anti-Muslim actions, I don't care if he's Muslim or not. A lot of people were saying, oh, but he's Muslim. I said, look, you cannot be an elected official and use this language. So I called him, and I said, I want to give you the courtesy of explaining yourself. I want to know if this is something that was a mistake or something that you do regularly, and I need a promise from you either way. So we spoke. At first he was defending. I said, look, you're still saying, no, these guys, they misunderstood me. I'm saying it's not about misunderstanding. You said it, I heard it. I said, never, ever will I accept an elected official to use this language because it demeans all Muslims.
Right.
If you have a problem with one person, talk to them. With a group, talk to them. But don't say the word Muslims on your tongue. You do not say stupid Muslims on your tongue. I would consider this to be an attack on all Muslims and unbecoming of an elected official. It seemed to me to be his English was hard to understand. I was surprised, actually. But let me just tell you the rest of it. And so basically, thank you. We came to the point where I essentially told him, if I hear of something again, it will not be the same conversation. Essentially, I'll call for your resignation publicly. So, I put him on notice with that. I said, look, whatever issues you have, you have. I'm not going to tell you, because you start telling me, oh, there's this family and there's, I don't,
right here.
okay, I said, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it from you, quite frankly, I don't want to hear it from him. This is your business. I only want to know that as an elected official, you have no right to bring Islam and Muslims into your personal feuds with families or whoever. Oh, cricket this, cricket that. I said, I don't want to hear it either, okay? As a Muslim official or a non-Muslim official, do not talk about Muslims this way on an official bench, an official business. Imagine if somebody says stupid Jews, oh, but he's Jewish, it's okay. It would never be okay, so do not ever do that. And even others on his bench were like, please don't bring religion into this. Like others were uncomfortable. He's very unprofessional, to be honest with you. So yeah, I mean, we put him on notice with that, and I'll be watching to see if anything like this happens again. But his other stuff, I don't want to hear about. It's not my business. It's just this point. Yes.
When you were talking about the witness, what was the hate crime?
Yeah. It could be anything. The hate crime could be anything. So but by hate crime, it means someone is targeted for their religion or race, and a crime is committed. So for example, they come to your mosque and they get a paint spray and they put on it like, something, like vandalize it. It could be a bad word, it could be a bad sign, it could be Muslims get out, terrorists. That would be a hate crime. If someone attacks you physically, hits you because you're a Muslim, that would be a hate crime. So if somebody is a witness, it means somebody has seen that, and they can say, oh, I've seen that. Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. Recently, the Jewish committee has passed an ordinance in northwest suburb, some of the northwest suburb for hate crime. Does CAIR is doing anything for Muslim community?
About
hate crime. They passed an ordinance in some of the northwest suburbs. I don't remember what are the suburbs.
Yeah, I mean, look, these ordinances are passed all the time, quite frankly, in many different places. So you happen to see one from that particular community in that place, but there's been many that's been passed. We've passed one statewide, not even just in a suburb, And through our affiliates and partners like Illinois Muslim Coalition, they pass these ordinances all the time. But what's more important than the ordinances, because the law already is pretty clear. To be honest, these ordinances are nominal. They're like token, The real work, the real service is to ensure when something happens that our attorneys are involved to fight for our community. Because in many cases, even a mosque that's vandalized, they'll say, oh, it was a drunk person. Oh, it was a person of mental, a lack of capacity. And it's not until our attorneys call that even in many cases, not all cases, the detectives begin to come. The detectives begin to answer the mosque's calls. Before that, we're understaffed. Can you believe it? So that is the real service, is making sure that we're there to hit the media, to put pressure on them, to call them from the back end with attorneys. So, pincer movements to make sure things move along and that the crime is taken seriously and that it's prosecuted as a hate crime. Because sometimes they'll say, oh, it was just a misdemeanor, whatever, not serious crime.
My next question is that how soon the CAIR attorneys are available on the airport? CAIR legal activities are available because we don't know what to do sometime if our family coming or somebody coming.
For the airport, we have a hotline. We're the only office in the entire country that has a hotline 24/7. And you can find it on the website tapus.org. TAP, Travelers Assistance Project.
Okay.
US.org, the only service in the entire nation that it's provided by CAIR Chicago.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We also have a program for anti-bullying of Muslims called Heelsters, also fully dedicated, the only one in the country from any of the CAIR offices. Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum.
So,
Question. So
Yeah.
if I have an accident, for example, and the person that I hit starts road raging or acting in a bad way, would it go differently, or what would you do?
yeah, in this case, it's common sense. I mean, in this case, it isn't law enforcement. It's, if this person uses in their road rage any anti-Muslim or racial insults, it's something, like we said before, you document, you remain calm, you remain secure your position, secure yourself, defend, make sure you're safe, number one, document everything that happens, get their license plate, so on and so forth. Same exact thing. And then we can pursue this person for a potential hate crime or a racial discrimination situation, etc.
I have a question. Could I actually hear some of the people actually telling me that there was the outside their home, police car comes and stop, and watch for a long time, and just now says that a lot of people saw it, so he kind of get scared, and I said, did you push the police, so what is the best way to, if you're feeling some Muslims, maybe you've been watching, outside, police, but it probably never came to the home or anything.
Yeah. Legally, there's not much you can do because it's public space. If a police car is parked on a street, that's not illegal for them to do. If you feel you're being watched, this will make you, of course, nervous and uncomfortable, but there's no legal recourse to that. There might be some beyond the legal, just human interactions where you get an attorney, like from our office, and you can approach the police department and say, hey, this family feels, passively harassed by your police department, what's going on, something like that.
I got
Yes,
a
sir.
question. So if your brother or sister or somebody, like, they stab or something.
If they're what?
If they stab somebody.
Stab somebody.
Yeah. If the FBI or the police, they're investigating that, like, is it you can allow that to, like, to watch you or follow you? How far you can allow it?
So again, with watching, it's the same answer. Anybody can watch anybody, unless it is encroaching on your space or safety. But you can still have an attorney contact and say, hey, this police department. So it's the same thing I just told the brother. But in terms of if you have a relative who's committed a crime and there's an investigation, and they believe you could be useful to the investigation, now we're talking about an investigation. You should still have an attorney and then comply with the investigation to the best of your ability, or by the advice of the attorney, and proceed protected that way. Because there are two ways you can be approached. One is just for the hell of it, like this brother that I began my conversation about, or two, for a reason that either concerns you or someone you know. Like it's part of an ongoing investigation, either of you or someone you know. So a good question to ask is, am I being investigated? Somebody I know being investigated. But you don't ask this. You don't ask anything or have any conversation other than I'll get you, my attorney's number or give me your card. Later, they'll be asking that question. Because it will make a difference. If there's an investigation, questions can be answered that are helpful to the investigation. Let's say terrorism investigation or something. But if you don't know the answer, you don't have to just volunteer. In many other cases, though, they're doing what I would call using you as Google. So they come to your house and say, what do you know about the Syrian war? Well, just go Google it, bro. Like, what do you mean? What do I know about the Google war, about the Syrian war? It's like, it's none of your business what I know about it. It's just, I read what I read. So that's different, right? Yes, sir. Did you have a question? That's a good question. I have that question all the time. Yes, sir.
Do they have a right to tap your phone, like, listening?
No. It's not a right unless there's a warrant.
What can you do that happens?
I mean, how would you know that your phone is tapped? I mean, that's.
Like I hear, like, some of a friend or somebody, like, anytime he's talking, like, right away, like, the other person he's talking to is being watched by a cop, like, talking to the cop.
Yeah, there's really nothing you can do unless there's a concrete situation. But if you just hear ticks and you don't know who's doing it, you can't just say, oh, I'm being tapped by the police or the FBI, and even if you were, you just have to know that you are as you're on a conversation. That's why people have Signal. I mean, this is something that applies to all citizens, not just Muslims. And there's really no way you can deal with something that is secretive and hidden, because it's secretive and hidden. So what you can do is protect yourself by making sure your communications are, the way that you would want them to be, or on things like Signal and other places,
Now the social media, the social networking, we have like Facebook and WhatsApp and plenty
Yeah.
of things. And for some reason, or for like, without unintentionally, you send some message to the group or something which is like against the community or against the government. Is there any?
No, there's no problem unless you say something illegal, unless you say something criminal or something that would hurt other people, or you, are an accessory to something like that. But if it's just an opinion and it's a harmless opinion, of course there's no problem with that, legally speaking.
Can I ask you the back question?
Yeah.
Same mayor of this town, using his capacity as the president of this town, putting on his Facebook, putting my name, that Bari's family, business, and all the way down, he's talking about my family as the president of this town. Is hurting my family? what else I can do? Can I go to somewhere and show what he's saying on his Facebook as a president of this town?
You could, of course. I mean, you can do the same thing he's doing. You could engage publicly in that debate and say, here's what I think of him, and you can go to his colleagues on the board of the town and say, here's my, you can file a complaint. You can do a lot of things.
In the meeting, he said, I'm using under the table and getting the connection.
I mean, he's still a citizen, and he has a right.
He is the village president.
I understand.
of the meeting.
Yes, but even during the meeting, he's a citizen. For example, if I run for office as a congressman, it doesn't mean I can't speak about Robert Spencer or like Pamela Geller or like other citizens who are.
Without any proof?
Well, that comes down to the details of it. But the point is, I would have a right to still say, these people are my enemies, these people want me to do this, I think they're like this. You know, it's a conversation.
I'm a thief. That's
So like I said, you
Yeah,
can.
I do have a question. Sorry for the interruption. So I'm here. Sorry.
Go ahead.
So if you remember, I'm not sure if you remember this or not, but like, it's I think like 7 months, 8 months ago, there was a trend going on the LinkedIn where it says like, some employer file, there was a job requirement, and they mentioned like, please do not submit a Muslim,
Oh, the Hindutva.
Yeah. So at the time, are we supposed to sue that employer or something?
Well, this employer wasn't based in the United States.
No, they are part of it.
No, that was an affiliate of theirs that did not themselves engage in this language. So what we did was we filed with the congressional, hearing facilities that basically overlook these things, put them on notice, and we're now in the process of acquiring more evidence, more information. These things take a very long time because we believe there is a movement. This isn't a one-time thing that just happened by mistake by one employer, because they can just say, and they did say, we fired this person, we apologize, this isn't our policy. So they did all the things that one would do, that you can expect, the maximum that one can do. Like you're not going to, close down the place, right? Like they said, oh, it's not us, it's not our policy, this is one crazy person, and they're gone. So now we believe though that there is more of these incidents, so we're working to put out surveys and acquire more information so we can try to make more sense of how big this is or how pervasive in this country it is.
This will be the last question, and then we'll.
Yes.
A quick question about traffic. If you get pulled over, for example, and they don't really have there's nothing in the car or nothing that they have to tell you to get out of the car, and they ask you, can you get out of the car and step out of the vehicle? Are you supposed to?
Here's the real question. Whether they have or not, can you say no?
Yeah.
The answer is no. So you have to comply with their orders, right? So you should not resist their orders. Like I said, if it gets to a point where it is problematic, you are documenting and you're reporting and you have recourse. So this isn't the end. This incident, this day is not the end. This could be the beginning of a lot of things. You just have to play it right so that when we get to the process, you have the upper hand. If there's any abuse of power, if there's any illegal activity by the police, you need to protect yourself, comply, you need to make sure you're not committing any errors, then you'll have the upper hand.
I mean, in general, for example.
I mean in general too. What do you mean in general?
Like, for example, if you get pulled over for speeding and they say,
Right, so that's what I'm answering.
Oh.
Any situation. I mean, we can count each one by name, or we can just say generally, and I think we're speaking generally. Any situation. You comply with the police officer, you document if there's a problem, and then later you'll have recourse if you were mistreated to be able to get this person fired, get this person put on leave, get this person suspended, whatever it is. Right?
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
Jazakallah khair for everyone for the question and answers, and Jazakallah khair, Brother Ahmed Rehab,
Thank you very much.
for your time. Inshallah, we will have tea and snack on the site, so please join us. Jazakallah.